Welcome back to another edition of the Talking National League podcast, episode 36 it is on this fine Thursday evening. Who needs Emmerdale? Who needs Coronation Street when you've got this on a Thursday evening to look forward to? Yeah, you might get back for The Apprentice, but let's talk a bit about the National League. Now, I'm pleased to be joined by Paul Franklin, the Wheelstone supporter, back on the podcast once again. How are you doing, Paul?
Yeah, good, thanks, Luke. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Got sent home from school quite early today because of the snow outside. I know you've mentioned it wasn't too bad down south, was it?
No, it's been and gone very quickly yesterday. So, no disruption for us down here, fortunately.
So hopefully all the away games down south can be played on Saturday too. Yeah, let us know where you're from and how bad the snow's been so far for those who are watching. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're trying to get that by the end of the season. We are, I think, at the moment, we're 90 away. We've just hit 910. So if you are watching and you're new around here, please remember to like and subscribe too. England, I was asked to also say England C are in action on the 21st of March at Altrincham Stadium, the J. Davidson Stadium. Ticket prices are £7 for adults and £2 for under 18. So if you are in the area, potentially any Halifax fans that might be watching, Manchester area, Wrexham might not be too far from there. Try come along on Tuesday, the 21st of March, if you do fancy going to that game. I have to say, Altringham's food, if you want to get some nice grub, it's very, very good there. I don't know what you thought of that, Paul, if you didn't make the journey up.
No, I've been there a couple of times now, and I've always been very impressed with the amount. I even took a friend with me, and he liked it so much he ended up getting another portion of chips afterwards. It was that good. So
I know they always appear on a Footy Scran, don't they? The Twitter's place. I know when we go, usually away games, they're always well known for football food. It's dreadful, especially at this level. But for Altrincham away, we always say, no, we're not going to a pub before the game. We're getting straight in ground and getting some nice pie and chips from Altrincham. Let's have a look at see who's come in. Please remember to retweet as well on Twitter to get more people in the live stream as possible. We're trying to get to as many National League supporters as possible who would like to tune in. First person in tonight who's early. Bozzy from Australia, Wrexham fan, first in the chat. Welcome and thank you for tuning into the podcast. Guessing you won't have any snow in Australia this evening. I don't think you ever get that. But Jack's come and said, no noise from the Barnet boys. No noise from the Barnet boys. Yeah, you'll be happy to hear that, won't you, Paul? I'm guessing that's the Dorking fan. A few more people coming in now. We've had Emma, who is a Wrexham supporter. Hi, Luke, watching from Wrexham, and it's still bad snow up here. Wrexham played excellent at Dagenham on Tuesday. Next game, Southend, if it's still on, but hope another 3 points too. Yeah, I noticed that Wrexham, the weather's not been too great either. Yeah, I don't know if you listen, but we got sent home from school, so yeah, it's been pretty bad in Yorkshire too. Maidstone, thoughts on Regan Booty potentially going to Oldham? Well, he's probably been one of the better players, hasn't he, for Maidstone this season? Paul, do you have any information on him?
No, I don't. I know he's one of the more consistent performers. He's obviously come from that slightly higher level in National League. Didn't quite work out for him at Notts County, did it? But I saw Maidstone play on Tuesday night against Wheelstone at the Vale, and they certainly missed him. You know, they don't have a massive amount of quality in the midfield. So, he's missed the last 3 games due to injury, and I think that's really affected them trying to get results, especially in the teams in and around that they've played and sort of scrapping with relegation for. So, he's going to be a massive miss, and I can see why someone like Oldham are trying to pick him up.
Yeah, that's something you've got to do at this level. Get the better players from the side with the weaker budgets in the division. Dagenham are well known for that. They snatched in the effing young off Aldershot too. And that's what you've got to do. If you're Oldham, you're probably not going to go down now, but you've also got to think, right, we're probably realistically not going to get into the playoffs this season. We need to keep the squad, the better players that we've got this season, get rid of the dead wood and bring in better players such as Regan Booty from Maidstone, because it's looking like Maidstone are going to go down. However, we'll have a bit on a positive note later on. If you want to stick around, as we're going to be talking about the FA Trophy games, and I'm sure we'll get on to talking a bit about Maidstone too and their chances of winning the competition. Marcus is coming tonight. What's up, everyone? Hope you're all doing great from North Carolina, USA here. Keep it rolling, Wrexham. Yeah, I'm loving the fact that we're getting a lot of foreign fans tuning into the stream. If Wrexham do go up, I've got to be honest, with the live streams, I will miss the support from your supporters. Another Wrexham fan up the Wrexham. Ali is, of course, a Woking supporter. Hi, Luke and Paul. How are you guys doing? We're doing good. Thank you, Paul. You all right tonight from Ali's been asking?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, looking forward to predicting these matches. They get more difficult every week because there's so many teams have got stuff to play for, haven't they? So, and any team really on its day can beat any other team. It often doesn't happen, but you sometimes think that can happen. So, difficult to predict. So, looking forward to this one.
Andrew's come in and said, hi, Wrexham fan, another Wrexham fan. Jack, who's the Dorking fan, said he's a Dorking fan. Dale is, of course, a Notts County supporter. When at Notts County, he was always injured. Andrew's also come in and said, hope the game's on for Saturday. Yeah, I think we all hope that. Joseph's come and said, evening chaps, Joe from OTLB here, looking forward to the show. Not sure what that is, but if you do want to tell us, but cheers for tuning in once into the stream, Joseph. And
it's on the line blog.
Off the line blog. That's what it is.
Sorry.
Yeah, thought so. Welcome, Joe, to the live stream. I'm sure we'll have you on again very, very soon. Luke's come in and said, hello, Mr. Walsh. Expecting the Gateshead win, surely. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be hoping for it. It's a massive banana skin for you guys. We managed to get his prediction. I did put it out on Twitter. From the away end to the home end. I couldn't understand a word you were saying. I'm not being offensive here, but I don't know if it was your accent or if it was just the distance between the two stands. But yeah, Luke, it was great to speak to you, even if it was shorter and sweet. Dale's also come in and said, Dorking are the only team that can do the double on Saturday. Yeah, that's something we will come into. Another subscriber as well, Stephen Hallam's subscribed to the channel. Keep them coming too. I'm sure there's a few of you guys in the stream that haven't subscribed yet, so please do. Just below 30 people in the stream at the moment. Hopefully those numbers can keep rising as we proceed further into the episode. I think that's more or less it before we do get into the predictions. I did want to talk a bit about Torquay, but we can always do that a little bit later. I know I heard Gary Johnson, what he said after the game, and it wasn't... I wouldn't have advised him to say that, but we do know the media like to twist things. They'll, bring out the words to get more likes, into reaction, etc. But, for him to go and say I think the majority of them are nearly men with 10 games remaining, it just doesn't sit right with me. You've got 10 games remaining and you're saying, we're over 2/3 into the season, they're nearly men. I don't understand it. I don't how you can say that. They need to be ready at this moment in time. 10 games to try keep your National League status alive. What would your take be on that, Paul?
Well, I mean, I'm always one for players have got to take a certain amount of responsibility. I don't think it should always fall on the manager. But the managers and his team and his board are the ones that have recruited these nearly men. And Gary Johnson has got an awful lot of experience at this level and above. And he knows what it takes for a playoff challenge. He also knows what it takes to scrap with relegation. So to be able to sort of turn around and say they're nearly men, these are his players. He's not like he's been parachuted in halfway through the season to save them. These are his players. He's gone through 2 or 3 transfer windows, 2 or 3 pre-seasons. Yeah, he had the same football club in the playoff final 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and are now drifting with a bit of a whimper, really, towards the National League South again. And he's talking about his players not being good enough. Now, I know he's also bemoaned the fact today, prior to the Wealdstone game on Saturday, that Wealdstone can recruit better because they can get loans from London teams. There's more chimney pots to. I mean, come on, Gary. I think he's trying to save his own skin here, and he's not looking at the shortfalls of his ability to recruit because he's done it in the past. Why can't he do it now? Yeah. I don't know their budgets. So that's one thing I can't comment on, and I don't think any of us can. I don't know what he's playing with in terms of budgets, but it's still a big pool, right? It's a full-time football club in the National League. They've been in the EFL. They're not a small club. So I think he's making excuses because of his failings. And, is he too long in the tooth? Is it time for him to go and do something else? I would suggest it probably is, but this isn't before he ends up getting Torquay relegated from. I think that's what's going to happen.
It does feel like Torquay, the board, are living off past glories. Of course, you're not going to want to spend money on sacking a manager and having to pay out his contract, with 10 games remaining. But do you feel like you should have done it earlier in the season and gambled on a new manager with fresh ideas? But I know the recruitment in the summer, on paper, I wasn't too impressed with it. I didn't think they'd be in this position, to be brutally honest. I didn't expect that, in all honesty, that they'd be in this position at the moment. But you look at the size of Torquay United, and that recruitment wasn't good enough, simple as, and they're not doing enough, in my opinion, at this moment in time with the calibre of players that they have. And it's sad to see, because Torquay, they're not one of the sides, any particular side that I want to see go down, but they're certainly not a side that I want to see in the National League South. A lot of people see them as, they should be in the Football League, the size of the club, their history. And it's sad to see that they could be, playing regional football in the National League South. But I just want to ask your opinion on this. We see fans protest their ideas on what's going on at the club. I don't know if you saw, but a few Torquay fans had a "We Want Gary Out" banner. Now, I've got my own opinion on this, but I just want to hear yours first. What would your opinion be? Would it be that, you have a right to protest, which of course they do, but it's probably not the right thing to do at this moment in time with 10 games remaining? Or do you think, we need to get this manager out of the club as soon as possible and bring in a new manager? And if that's us protesting against the board and letting our voices be heard, then that's what we'll do. What's your take on that?
I don't see any problem in it. Fans pay their money. They invest a lot of time, energy, emotion into these football clubs at whatever level that they support at. As long as it's done, I know it sounds funny, as long as it's done respectfully, and it doesn't overstep the mark and it doesn't become very personal. I know we talk about the Premier League, but Everton directors couldn't even go to the own match because of the threats to themselves. That's when it gets beyond a joke. So I can't see any reason why fans can't show their displeasure at a certain player or a manager, but there's still got to be a level of respect to it, because ultimately, it's their football club. These clubs run because of the fans, and if the fans aren't happy, I'm not suggesting that it should be the fans should put so much pressure on a board or a chairman to say, right, we've got to sack the manager. But by showing those feelings, then surely the board and the chairman or managers, if they're talking about players, will look at that and go, right, okay, where's the problem here? And I think with Gary Johnson, he just stayed too long. He just stayed way too long, and it just hasn't been effective. They probably need a new voice in that changing room, and that's what the fans are sort of suggesting and saying. And the problem, I think, is like you said, he's got so much credit in the bank that, a bit like when Arsene Wenger was at the Arsenal for all those years, he's starting to sort of unravel everything that he's done for that football club.
Yeah, like I've said, the Torquay fans really think, and the Torquay board think, he's really going to be there next season when the National League South, and he'll get them relegated, and then he'll go off. And it's sad to see you end on such a negative note when he's had a fair few good seasons. There's talks of him retiring at the end of the season. Sort of his status of being such a quality manager and getting sides promoted in the lower leagues against the odds, like he did with Yeovil, like he almost did with Torquay. It'll all go out of the window because of a poor, one-off season where the recruitment start the season wasn't good enough. And it's sad to see, but it sort of feels like Torquay throughout the season, they've always had that fight. They've just not had the quality where in recent weeks, to a certain extent, it feels like they're giving up. And that's something that you don't want to see. Gary's press conferences, what he's saying, it feels like he's giving up as a manager.
Yeah, without doubt. And 10 games to go, they've not shown any sort of desire to sort of get out of that bottom 3 or 4, and I can't see it happening. No, I think they're going to go.
Yeah, I think it's Maidstone. It's more or less certain. It's more or less set in stone. I think at Maidstone, that's been for quite some time now. I think it's almost going to be mathematically possible for them to go down. Then I'd say Torquay. I think they're probably gone down, in my opinion, as well. And then maybe there's a shout for Scunthorpe. They've had a few spells recently where you could say, yeah, they're good enough to survive, but there's the talk about them leaving it too late too. Obviously, there's Paul Cook as well, and I put that in one of the topics to talk about because the topic was, has he shut up the haters now? Because he was getting a bit of criticism after some bad form at Chesterfield. I think it was something like they hadn't won. Was it in over 10 games? It was something stupid like that. Well, the last 2 games, he's picked up maximum points against Southend and Gateshead. Colclough seems to be scoring again now. 3 goals in 3 for them. Paul McCallum's got on the score sheet recently too. So it's looking good there too. I just want to ask, what's your opinion on that? Do you think it was a bit unnecessary and a bit harsh for supporters of Chesterfield to be so negative towards a manager like Paul Cook? Or do you think it's all in hindsight now? Yeah, we can say that they were doing that, but at the time it was looking like maybe it was.
I don't know. I mean, again, I think the problem they had was it was almost like last season, wasn't it? They dropped off a cliff a little bit, and their playoff challenge really, or their challenge for promotion, sort of really stopped. And it was looking like it was going to happen again. I mean, Wealdstone went up there and got a draw in midweek a few weeks ago, and responses to Twitter around that result was that our form hasn't. I happen to mention on here that the form had dropped a little bit or dropped off a cliff, and someone turned around and said, "No, it hasn't. Our performance have been good." Well, form is what's written down on the results, and they clearly weren't getting the results. And I think the problem with Paul Cook is it's one of those things, isn't it? He's a very good manager. They've got a very good setup. They are EFL ready, if you like. I would suggest seeing the setup and the squad, and to be underperforming, it's just that frustration from the supporters. Now, the good thing is that one, they've stuck with Paul Cook, who clearly knows the club and knows the league. But they've also backed him by signing McCullum, by signing Colclough, by signing Dallas this week. And there's talk of them getting Lapata from Southend potentially, because he's just left from his contract breach. If you look at that, he's sort of almost gone and strengthened the spine of the team. And because of that, they're now responding and getting results. And they're only 2 or 3 points off third, behind Woking. So for such a bad run they've had, they're still in there and got a chance of still getting promoted. So I think they were quite right. I think any club that goes 10 games without a win, especially in the position they're in after having such a good start, fans are going to get frustrated and sort of twitchy around what might happen, especially after the back of last year. But Paul Cook has held his nerve. This team have held their nerve. The board have backed him. And I think, they're going to go back up again and probably finish 3rd or 4th and have a strong playoff. I'm not seeing whether they'll get promoted, but, they're definitely going to be in the mix.
Yeah, they certainly are. It goes back to what I was originally saying when I was saying it's that big club mentality where you're taking the best players from the weaker clubs in the division, like Chesterfield did with getting Paul McCallum from Dagenham, like they did with getting Colclough from Altrincham too. And Lapata as well, who's obviously at Southend, was at Southend United, left. Really, really good defender. Shouldn't be in this division at all, but we can say that about a lot of players this season. He's rumoured to join the club. If you add that, they are going to be a force. It's like you've mentioned, it's like a new spine to the team. It's like you're building again that the weaker players in the Chesterfield squad have been pushed further down the pecking order now. And obviously Dobb, where he's had his injury problems, but I think he's back, if I believe now, back in the side too. So, forward line of Dobb, McCallum and Colclough, that is extremely dangerous. Just over 50 people in the stream at the moment. Great numbers once again. We'll quickly read out the comments and then we'll get on to predicting all the upcoming games. So we will start from here, I believe. Keith's coming, who's a Notts County supporter. Come on, Notts. Let's get back to winning ways on Saturday if the game is on. Really enjoyed the content, Luke. Cheers, Keith, for your kind words once again. Joshua's coming, who's a Solihull fan. Thoughts on Solihull's chances of playoffs and transfers out? We'll come back to that question later on in the stream because we do want to get on to predicting all the games. But when we do talk about Solihull and their upcoming game, we will mention that, of course. Dale's coming and said, have a stat for your Macaulay Langstaff average goal of every 86 minutes a game over the season. Paul Mullin averages a goal 105 minutes over the season in league games only. Yeah, that's some stat, isn't it? That that's. I don't think you'll get that in the whole of the top 5 divisions, to be honest. I think even maybe Haaland will have that, but he might be the only one who'd compete with that. The only team who I can see have a chance of surviving is Gateshead and Scunthorpe. Yeah, based off Tuesday night, though, Luke, I have to say I don't think Gateshead will survive, unfortunately, but maybe it was just a poor evening for you. Scott said, good evening, Luke. Welcome, Scott. Let us know who you support too. Maidstone fans said, assuming Ebbsfleet are being removed from the South, Torquay should be by far favourites to go back up if they go down. Yeah, they should be, and this is maybe what you've got to say. If they don't survive, at least have a positive end to the season now, get a new manager, a massive rebuild, which is certainly what's needed. Would that be something that you'd agree with what the Maidstone fans said?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you'd always like to think that someone like Torquay are a big fish in a small pond when it comes down to National League South. But we all know that National League, both North, South and the Premier, they're really tough leagues to get out of. And, you know, Torquay can't go into that and be complacent enough to think we get straight back up. But they've got everything in their armoury to come straight back up. You know, Ebbsfleet it's taken them a few years to potentially come back up, and it looks like they're going to be. You know, so that sometimes it doesn't quite happen that way. But I can't see Torquay not coming back up as long as they appoint the right manager. If Gary Johnson goes and has a bit of a rebuild and sort of just freshen up and go again. But yeah, they're definitely going to be one of the favourites if they go down, without a doubt.
I agree, and I think when we talk about the South and the North, it seems a lot easier to come back up from the South than it does the North at this moment in time. You know, you look at a lot of sides, there's a lot of yo-yo clubs sort of between the South and the National League, where the North, a lot of sides, of course, do get stuck there. You know, Torquay, Maidstone, they're going to be some of the favourites next season if they do go down. And of course, like we've mentioned with Torquay, if Maidstone can somehow win this FA Trophy, it'll do the world of good for them heading into next season. It'd be interesting to see who does come up though this season. I know Ebbsfleet, I went there in the FA Cup. Not too bad of an away game. I wouldn't mind going there if they can get promoted from the South. Oxford City, that's an interesting one. I wouldn't mind them coming up from the South. Any that you have your eyes on, and any clubs that you're wanting to see next season in the National League?
I mean, Ebbsfleet will be a good one. They're a full-time side. I think they're well backed. You know, they went that different route and got a German manager in. So, you know, they've sort of bucked that trend a little bit after a few years of that fan ownership idea and model that didn't really sort of pay off. Oxford City is probably a bit of an outsider. They had a bit of a rebuild in the summer. They lost a couple of their better players, but have really bounced back and done well. I can't see much past Ebbsfleet, maybe Dartford, but there's no one else really in there that's consistent enough. St Albans have dropped off the pace a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, I can't really see beyond Ebbsfleet and Dartford, but when it comes to playoffs, yeah, who knows? You know, all of a sudden it's anyone's, isn't it? So it'd be interesting to see what pans out, because you always get that late surge from a team. You know, Wealdstone did it when we sort of got into the playoffs a few seasons ago before we ultimately got promoted the year after. We sort of came in on the back of the last game and got into the playoffs. So that you've always got to look out for that team that shows that run of form. A little bit like what we'll see in the National League. You know, someone like Wealdstone, someone like Eastleigh, you know, Dagenham, they may go on that run and just pop themselves in right at the last knock-in. So, anywhere in the National League South who gets promoted is good for me because it's nearer to where I live. So, yeah.
Same with the North, and I'm sure there's a lot of big clubs in the North as well. Chester's one that I'd love to go back to Chester's ground. You know, they're a big club that's been in that league for too long. I'm hoping that they can win the title. And then Scarborough, they'd be my outside shot in the playoffs, because it's a trip to the seaside and not too far for Halifax either. You know, that'd be a good away day. And I do have a bit of a soft spot for them, because I've gone to a few of the games and got a few mates who are Scarborough fans. So they'd be my two from the South. And then Rochdale, that's one that I'd love to see coming down. That is actually a set in stone derby between Halifax and Rochdale. You know, I think we chant about them in our chants, etc. So it'd be great to have that proper rivalry again. Of course, this talks about Oldham, but you can't really compare the two clubs. You know, Oldham are a lot bigger club than Halifax, but where Rochdale, it could be seen as a proper derby, and be great to have them in the National League 2. And then, of course, someone like, it's looking like it could be a Hartlepool again, which is not one that I'd be too disappointed with. Don't know what your thoughts would be on that. Long way for you, wouldn't it?
No, I think anyone based
down there.
Yeah, so anyone based down south, I think would prefer Crawley or Gillingham to come down. And you know, from a selfish point of view, yeah, I'd much rather someone like Rochdale come down, not been there, so it'd be a new ground to go to. Whereas we have had Hartlepool in the National League in the last few years. So yeah, I think Crawley are a little bit of a basket case. So I think we might end up with them in the National League. Gillingham have seemed to got themselves sorted a little bit. Just need to get a few results.
But they got a point, didn't they, at Stockport? So.
Yeah, so I think Crawley and Rochdale are probably the two likely ones, which is a north and south team. So it suits everyone right in the National League. So
yeah, it certainly does. Just as we're on the topic of teams coming up and coming down, a topic was tonight that how many miles have you done on Fan Hub this season? So for anyone in the live chat, as we do go through the predictions that we still haven't got onto yet, please let us know how many miles you've done. I think I've done over 2,000 this season. Paul, you've probably done more than that with the amount of away games that I've seen you go to this season. Do you know how many, or you're not on the app?
No, I genuinely don't. But it's been a fair few. We teams have all the fans that come. We have a chap that comes in from Torquay every match, all over the country. So a chap called Roger who travels all over the country from Torquay. He does a huge amount of miles. And can I just say at this point, the Wrexham fan, I can't remember his name, who unfortunately passed away this week.
I saw that.
Travels in. He was travelling on a regular basis in from Switzerland. So that takes some beating. May he rest in peace. And it's sorry to hear him that he's passed away. But I can imagine his fan hub stats are pretty impressive. So a real loss of non-league football by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it certainly was. When that news came around, of course, you do a bit of detail into it when obviously the accounts from Wrexham give their research about it and what's happened. And for someone that dedicated and such a passionate supporter in the National League, it's so sad to see, because it's not something we want. We don't want to see supporters or people in general, pass away at such a young age too. And, it's a big loss to non-league with the amount of miles that he were doing and how dedicated he was to obviously his beloved Wrexham FC. So that were very sad to hear. And I'm sure all National League supporters give their condolences to his family and friends too. Let's have a quick look at what people else been saying before we do get into the predictions. When Torquay played us at home, Johnson was talking pot shots at the travelling fans to fans for leaving early. Classless fool of a man. Yeah, I know he's been getting a lot of criticism from other supporters too. Seems to be falling down the Andy Woodman route, where he's becoming very, very unpopular within the National League. Chris, who is a Notts County fans in the stream tonight, I would love to sleep if Torquay get relegated. Sorry, Gulls fans. And then he said, I agree with Ali. Carl's coming, thinks Scunthorpe could stay up, played well against Wrexham when they came to the racecourse. Yeah, the only thing I would say about Scunthorpe, have they left it too late now? And they've still proven, dropping points at places like Maidstone. It sort of shows to me, are they consistent enough in this current position that they're in now to survive? I'm not too sure. Next, we dropped, Joe, who's a Chesterfield fan, said we dropped off a cliff last year because our manager was sacked for legal reasons and our key players had his leg snapped in half. Yeah, that was very unfortunate. I think you were cursed last season, to be honest, as a Chesterfield fan after Christmas time. But I don't think you'll fall down the same trap this season, especially with the additions that you've made, which was something you didn't do last season to the same extent. Just loading still here. Joe said 4 points behind Woking with a game in hand. Yeah, we'll come on to that in a sec and talk about whether you can catch Woking and get in the top three. Spyrite dropped off a cliff last season after their manager showing he was a true... I'm not going to read that out, but I do agree. I can't say much on that. Le Potter from Southend signing...
should be 4, I think.
Yeah, Chesterfield as well. Matt, who's coming tonight, I think Callum is a Chesterfield fan. For some reason, I think he's a Solihull fan, but no, I think he's Notts County. I think. Any news on Aaron Hayden? Not at the moment. I'd have a look at the Wrexham accounts, Matt, about when he's returned. I know he got injured. It was in the FA Cup, wasn't it? If you have a look at like Rob Ryan Red or Fearless and Devotion, I'm sure there'll be some information on that. But watch this podcast first. Williams coming and said, evening, guys. Thoughts on who should be the next Dagenham manager? We had this topic as well last week. I do want to get through all the comments and then we will talk about this. And then we've had our owner isn't investing more, as every time he has recently has wasted money on poor players that aren't good enough for the National League South, let alone the non-league. Don't blame the owner for not investing. Is that a Torquay fan, I believe?
Yes, Joe. Yeah, from Off the Line. Yeah,
Joe from Off the Line blog. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And then we've had the Maidstone fan. Dartford seems to bottle it every single season. William said someone like Tornbridge sneaking through the playoffs would be class. And then we've had Dale, Old Man Johnson's Dinosaur tactics will send them down with 2 games they have had against us. And then just the last few now, Chester Ground in Wales. Yeah, it's between, in it? Half of it's Wales, half of it's England. And then Chris has come in with his miles, 2,571 and counting for me. I think mine it's over 2,053. So that's some going. You've just outdone me at the moment. And of course, you're central as well. So a lot of the games are less than me. So I'm sure you've done a lot more away games than I have. Don't you know, pump it up. The Chesterfield are going up. Yes, back on form now. A lot more positivity. Final one then. No clue why I said 2-1 now, considering how where both sides were playing. Even Luke had troubles holding his phone out, maybe of the role of my height. Yeah, we'll talk. We'll come back to the chat later in the podcast, but we do need to get on with the predictions. These were the scores. It's level now. It's getting a little bit tight and a little bit interesting now. Joe came on and it was 28 points each. Well, obviously not just based off that game week, but in total now. Paul, do you reckon you can beat me this weekend? You did last time.
I did last time, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've gone for similar sort of results, maybe not scores, so it's going to be a tight one. But yeah, well, I'm backing myself without doubt, Luke. Yeah.
A little bit nervous. I don't want to come to the end of the season and put this on and see that I've lost to the guests when it is my own podcast. But yeah, we do need to get into the predictions. So we'll quickly have a look. Here's the table for anyone that's interested. Wrexham top, not second. Woking, Chesterfield, Barnet, Bournemouth, Eastleigh, and so on. And then towards the bottom, you've got your likes of Aldershot, Dorking, Yeovil, Gateshead. And then that, in my opinion, below that, I'd probably say they are down. But there's a lot of shouts for Scunthorpe and maybe Torquay, but I don't think so, unfortunately. Let's have a look at the games then. Here we go. These are the games. Then we'll quickly have a look at the FA Trophy. So first game then, as we were on the topic of Chesterfield versus Yeovil then. Now, this is quite an interesting one in my opinion. We've talked a lot about Chesterfield just recently now. Colclough scored 3 goals in 3. McCallum's starting to score. They seem to be back on form now. You know, Jeff King, Dobra, a lot of quality there, and I think it's certainly a good enough side to get in the top 3. As for Yeovil, a good win in midweek, of course, against Eastleigh was a bit of a shock result, but still the problem is goals for them. You know, Fisher's their top goal scorer with 5 goals, and they've had 15 draws in this season. Only Lincoln in League One have had more draws than them in the top 5 divisions. How do you see this game going?
I've gone for a Chesterfield win, 2-1, but I can certainly see Yeovil playing for a draw. You know, Mark Cooper's got them set up so they don't lose game. You know, try not to lose games. And I think you're right. The biggest challenge they've had is scoring goals and turning those draws into wins. I just can't see past the Chesterfield win, even though Yeovil are improving. You know, they've obviously been buoyed by the new ownership that's come in, and they seem quite sort of bullish on Twitter and, you know, trying to pack Huish Park and doing things sort of the right way to get a little bit of momentum and confidence into the team. But I think with the new signings, with McCullum coming in, I saw Dobra come off the bench against Wilstone a few weeks ago to get the equaliser. He clearly looks lively and he's got quality. You know, add Dallas into there, who started on the bench. McCullum starting to score. I can't see past the Chesterfield win, but I don't think it's going to be a thrashing. As I say, I think it's 2-1. Chesterfield haven't scored too many goals, or seem to score too many goals per game. But again, that may change now that they've got these signings. So, yeah, I've gone for Chesterfield 2, Yeovil 1, obviously off the back of what we've spoken about. And, you know, I think Yeovil have got enough to stay up, but I don't think they'll win this one.
Yeah, I've gone for 2-0, so quite similar. I just can't see Yeovil scoring, to be honest, although they did win in midweek, and we have to give them credit for that. Maybe they've got that new takeover bounce. Some of the signings, though, that Yeovil have made have been excellent, and I think it shows the intent from the ownership with the new ownership. they dropped ticket prices, I think, on Saturday too. So it seems like they're doing a lot of good things off the field. And Scott Pollock was a big name, and I was quite shocked with that signing because he's been around for a while. I believe he was at #United in the lower leagues, if I'm correct. And then he went to Northampton. And he's at Yeovil now, and he's a quality midfielder. So I'm sure he'll add something in there going forward, a bit more creativity, because that's something they have lacked. And hopefully, with that creativity, you've got the likes of Fisher and Linton getting more goals for them. But of course, they're still in the thick of it with the relegation battle. They've got an extremely difficult end to the season, probably the hardest one. I've got it up here. They've got the likes of Barnet to play, Halifax away, which is a difficult one, Bromley, Southend, Wrexham, Solihull, Boreham Wood, and so on. That has to be the hardest and most difficult end to the season from any of the sides near the bottom. The only thing I will say on that with Yeovil is the fact that when you are playing against sides around you, there's a lot more pressure. And of course, there's still pressure. But if you lose, you're gifting teams around you points. So, for example, Dorking, I know they're playing a lot. I think they still do actually have to play Yeovil. They've got to play Gateshead too. I think Aldershot they've played, but they've still got a lot of sides around them to play Dorking. So if they do drop points to sides around them, then they're going to be in a really difficult position where Yeovil has a little bit less pressure. And I know this season they've done a lot better against the better sides in the division. They got a point against Wrexham earlier on in the season, point against Chesterfield, point against Notts County away, and a win against Eastleigh. But like I mentioned, there's a lot of points there against the better sides in the division. But those 15 draws, they need to be converting a few of them into wins. What would your opinions be on that and that end to the season?
Oh, it sounds tough. I think the positives for them is they've made those signings. Got an experienced manager in Mark Cooper who knows how to win the National League, let alone stay in it. Having new ownership and just having that sort of buzz around the place. I think they'll do enough. If they pick a point up for most of those games, they'll probably stay up and win some of those against teams around them if they're playing any of them. It's tough to make these predictions, right? Because Chesterfield are looking to go third. Yeovil are looking to stay up. So because we've got playoff positions right down to 7th, is it? You kind of, and you've got 4 going down. There's an awful lot of teams still playing for something. So it's a really difficult one to really see. Yeovil could quite easily beat Chesterfield. I can't see it, but they might do. At the same time, Chesterfield might pump them. So these games are so difficult to predict because of the unpredictability of these teams in the league.
Yeah, I agree on that. And I think, like you've mentioned, anything can happen at this stage of the season. Chesterfield are, going into this game guns blazing probably because they need to get into the top 3. I know they've had a fair few draws themselves, Chesterfield, this season, 7 draws for them. Only Boreham Wood in the top 7 have had more draws. Oh, no, forget about that. That's a stupid stat. That's incorrect. But I know it's a difficult one for Chesterfield. It's a little bit of an awkward game because Yeovil probably going to come put 11 men behind the ball and try catch you on the break at Chesterfield, and it's going to frustrate the supporters. And if it is 0-0 with 20 minutes to spare, and you've got fans getting on the backs of players, which it's not me saying this, it has happened this season. It's not going to do them any good, and this is why, if you are a Chesterfield fan, you do want to get behind the team until that 90th minute. And if you are going to give criticism, at least do it after the game, because this is a difficult time now, and you're getting into this point of the season now where you need to get behind the players no matter what. We saw in the Premiership last season, I know it's a totally different level, but Everton, when it really did matter and they were looking like they were going to go down, they got points against the better sides, and that was because of the fans that got behind them. And I think it's the same with Chesterfield here. They've had 2 good results now. They need to build on that, and they need to have the fans behind them. But I'm going to go for a 2-0 Chesterfield win. I think they'll be able to pull through in this game. Where would you like to go next then?
I've got Eastleigh Oldham next on my list. So
yeah, this is a bit of a difficult one to call because Oldham in midweek in the last minute defeated Woking at home, and that's some going that against a good Woking side. I think Oldham starting to settle now, starting to have a proper structure behind them now, scoring a lot of goals too. But Eastleigh, of course, lost in midweek, but still have, I think, the 3rd best home record in the division this season. I've gone for a draw for this game. I went for a 1-1 draw. I can't split the two sides. I think with Oldham will be on a boost after Tuesday's victory over Woking, and Eastleigh, of course, will be needing to get back to winning ways to, I think they are, to stay in the playoff spots at this moment in time. What would your take be on this game?
I agree with you. It's a difficult one to split with. Oldham have got out in the last 6. Have got 4 wins and 2 losses. Woking have got two wins, 2 draws, 2 losses, but had 3 wins on the spin before losing to Maidenhead. So they're both on a decent sort of set of form, really. And I think you're right. David Unsworth's starting to string results together. He's settled his squad, which is a huge squad. They're quite well armed for National League. I've gone with a 2-2 draw.
Yeah.
The positive for Woking is that Reece Brown comes back. Scored a lot of goals. He got sent off 3 games ago. So in the last 3 games, they've been without him. And have they missed that threat? He could be back if he starts. That's a positive for them. So yeah, I'm a bit like you. Can't see them split. Oldham at home on a Tuesday night under lights is always an advantage to them. So I've gone for a scoring 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw, yeah. Similar results there. Torquay v Wealdstone then. And I know for a fact we do have different predictions for this game. Now, we've talked a lot about Torquay United and them. And of course, Wealdstone as well. Honestly, Paul, I just think they're not quite good enough for the playoffs this season. I don't think when I thought maybe they might threaten and get in the playoffs this season, they probably haven't. They haven't. Obviously, a game in hand on sides above them. So if they do win against Torquay, which you would expect, they'd be 3 points behind the playoffs. But I think it comes down to that pure quality. And have Wealdstone really got it? I know you'll have a lot more to say on this than me, but honestly, compared to some of the other sides in there, no, I just don't think they're consistent enough. What's your thoughts on Wealdstone? I know it's something we've talked about a lot, about them breaking into the playoffs, but I'll ask for your thoughts on this game. But do you still see, with, let's say, 11 games remaining for them getting into the playoffs, or do you think it is a bit of a step too far?
If I'm brutally honest, I genuinely don't know, because, you saw them play at the Shea 2 weeks ago, and Halifax absolutely battered them. I mean, I've not seen a more inept performance off of Wealdstone this season, maybe apart from one of the cup matches. I can't remember who it was we played. They were dreadful, and then they go and beat Altrincham 4-0 at home and beat Managerial. We always seem to, the Stones always seem to bounce back after a bad performance or a bad result with a good one. We drew 2-1 all draws out of Chesterfield and Woking. We're going to Halifax thinking they're there for the taking, and got absolutely battered. It was, and any Halifax fan is quite right to turn around and go, I can't see Wealdstone doing anything off that performance. Genuinely, I think they've got the ability to get into that. We've just got Corey Andrews from Torquay. He's got 3 and 5. He's scoring goals. He's looking more of a handful every time. I mean, against Halifax, he never got the ball. So, you couldn't really comment on him at all. He was one of the unlucky ones in that performance, because, he might well not have been there. We couldn't get the ball forward enough to him. But he's a real handful to centre halves. He pins them. He's in their face. He's just niggly, and I think he's kind of that missing piece that we've wanted to try and have that playoff push. It's important to win games like Saturday against Torquay. Torquay are a wounded animal. They are at home. I can't see anything other than a Wealdstone win, and that's not being a Wealdstone fan. I think just based purely on form, goals we've scored. I've gone for a 3-1 Wealdstone win. I can see us winning, because we've got Chesterfield at home, which is going to be a tougher fixture on a Tuesday night. So, yes, I think we can make the playoffs, but I can see your point of view of we've got to keep a consistent 11 now. Yeah. Against Halifax, we had 3 of our back 4 missing who played the previous week. And it really showed, because, we then had someone missing, Charles missing from the midfield. So we weakened the 2 main areas of the pitch. So, yes, it's really important that we keep our main players. It's important that, we keep that good run going, because we could flip and then lose 5 in a row. So I think we can. But I can see what you're saying about have they got quite enough. I can see from an outsider's point of view that as well. But more importantly, Saturday I can see us winning.
Yeah.
I've put 3-1. We've spoken a lot about Torquay. I don't think we need to sort of dwell on that. But, I don't want to curse Wealdstone, but I think they're going to win.
This screams a draw for me, and I'm going to go for a totally different option. I know Wealdstone, of course, they last played. Oh, it's gone out of my head now when they last played. But I know Torquay, of course, drew to Aldershot and obviously then lost to Boreham Wood. But of course, being at home, they drew to Aldershot away. Just screams a draw. Being at home, I think it'll be quite low scoring. Wealdstone are so inconsistent. I was shocked. They came to the Shea, and this isn't my words, but I know on the Halifax forum, Halifax fans, because of course it was a bit of a freak result, you may say, because of where we were in the division and where Wealdstone were and how we were playing compared to Wealdstone. But Halifax fans said you can't read too much into this performance from Halifax because Wealdstone were the worst side we've seen at the Shea in about 3 or 4 years, and it just shows that you can have an off game, but then you go out and beat an Altrincham side that have just regained a lot of good form at the time too. Mm. But it could be a case of Wealdstone going here and winning 4-0, but then it could also be a case of them losing to Torquay away from home, which wouldn't surprise me either. But this game screams a draw for me, and I think, of course, you mentioned about injuries with the back four being missing. It unsettles the side, and maybe it won't show as significantly over your Notts and your Wrexhams. Of course, it will to a certain extent, but not as much as it will with Wealdstone. When you unsettle that side, it really does show, especially when you're part-time like Wealdstone, and that's probably why I don't think Wealdstone will get into the playoffs this season. But hopefully, from your perspective, they'll prove me wrong. The next game we'll have a look at then. Where would you like to go to next?
Well, let's go down it in order. Woking Maidenhead we got next on here.
Woking v Maidenhead. I think this will be high scoring. I'll put my prediction out here now. 3-2. Woking need to bounce back after the Oldham defeat, which I think they will. But then Maidenhead, of course, they've been on really good form at the moment, but of course lost in midweek. How do you see this game going?
Do you know what? Maidenhead they're an incredible team to predict because Alan Devonshire is so well versed in what National League football's about. Year on year builds a squad that's capable of challenging and upsetting the apple cart, and they did it again. They took a draw off Wrexham at home on the television. Woking are in the top 4 or 5. So I've gone for a 1-1 draw purely because it's at Woking. I know Maidenhead are really struggling for centre halves. They've just had to recall Temi Aweka, I think that's how you pronounce it, or Temi Aweka from Slough. He's been playing regularly for Slough in the National League South. I've seen him play. He's a really good kid. Big, tall, rangy, athletic centre back, and there's a massive chance that he's going to play in the back four for Maidenhead on Saturday. Straight out of the National League South into the back three of a National League tie against Woking. With Reece Brown back, it's going to be a real test for him. So I've gone for a 1-1 draw because Maidenhead are just very difficult to beat, and especially from away from home. They play quite direct football. They're not particularly pretty. Woking are very similar. They're not particularly pretty in terms of the way they play, but they're very effective. I saw Woking a few weeks ago when we took a 1-1 draw off of them, and they didn't threaten massively. I think with Reece Brown back, that's an added dimension for them. But I see a 1-1 draw coming.
I think they'll definitely make it difficult for Maidenhead. It could be a case of, I'm at the games and my phone's pinging, and it'll be 1-0 Woking, 1-0, 2-1 Maidenhead, 2-2 Woking score later on. It feels extremely like that sort of game to me. High scoring, of course. Maidenhead have been on good form recently. Had a slight blip in midweek, losing to Bournemouth, but I think any side, when you're 2-1 down against Wrexham, to come back in the last minute and score. I know it was a bit of a mistake from Mark Howard, but it shows a lot of character from the side, in my opinion. But I just think in this game, with Woking being the home side, the amount of pressure on them to win, if they do lose, Chesterfield are right on their backs. I honestly think Woking will be able to pull through in this game and gain all 3 points. Next place we'll have a look at then, I think we are on to the final 2 National League, and then, of course, we'll move on to the FA Trophy Honour. There's a lot more down here. No, they're the following week, I think. Yeah,
they are. Yeah, Wrexham, Southend, and Notts County, Dorking. So the top two to predict next.
Let's have a look at Wrexham v Southend then. How do you see this one going? I want to just show you the amount of green just there. I think it's every single week we see the amount of green there with Wrexham. But how do you see that going?
Southend, to their credit, have been brilliant. Not getting paid, whatever Rob Martin's doing off the field, borrowing money from here to pay the HMRC. They're doing remarkably well, but I think it's starting to catch up with them a little bit. We've spoken about Lapata going. That's not going to be a massive loss to him. Louis Lomas has come in and done very well, and Kevin May has mentioned, how impressed he's been now that he's back in the side. I just can't see anything but a Wrexham win. 3-1 I've gone for. They're at home, racecourse ground, probably 10,000 people there. Southend are doing remarkably well, and hats off to them. But I just don't see them getting anything out of this game. It's purely and simple as that. They'll give Wrexham a game. Clearly they will, because they're in and around the playoffs themselves. But I can't see anything but a Wrexham win, and possibly in that a Paul Mullins penalty, because clearly, I don't want to upset the Wrexham fans there, but Phil Parkin's saying he needs more protection. But I think sometimes he just needs to stay on his feet a little bit more, right? But there you go.
I think it's the way he plays, though, and he's that sort of player. He frustrates defenders, backs into him, which causes the defenders to foul him. And I think referees are picking up on that. And my dad once described him when we went to Wrexham. He's a nasty player to play against. Everyone in the league hates him apart from Wrexham supporters. That's the way he is. And of course, other fans who obviously watch the documentary, he'll be likeable on that. But I can't stand the man. Not against him as a person, but the way he plays on the field. I think it's the same with everyone, because he gets in the box, he nudges defences, and then it causes the defence to foul him, gets a penalty. And that's the way he plays, and they're the sort of strikers you need at this level. Although a lot of fans dislike him, he does a job for Wrexham, and you can't discredit him for that. No. But this game, I can see it just being one of those standard performances at home. I don't think it'll be a battering from Wrexham being at home. I think it'll just be a standard 2-0. Southend, like you've mentioned, it does seem to be catching up with them now at being very relentless, hasn't it? The amount of games they're playing doesn't help the fact that they're not getting paid. And of course, that's going to have an effect on them, even if they're trying the hardest to get into the playoffs this season. It's still going to have an effect on the players mentally too, and physically as well. But of course, this game, I think it'll be a standard performance for them. I think as a Southend, you probably go in there defending and hoping that you can keep them out, maybe catch them on the break, or the likes of Callum Powell, who's up top for them. But unfortunately, I just think the gulfing class between the two sides, there's a lot more than a lot. I think over 20-odd points between the two sides. It might even be more than that. I think Wrexham will be able to pull through in this game. And I think Southend, it's a day out for their supporters. I think they're taking a lot, but then you have to build in the upcoming weeks because, of course, 8th in the league table at the moment. They've got games in hand, though, on sides above them. But there's still, this game, I can't see them getting anything out of that. And then it's the next game. But yeah, I think it'll be a standard 2-0 win for Wrexham, in my opinion, on this game. I did ask you for your prediction. I know you said Wrexham win.
3-1.
3-1 to Wrexham. And then we're on to Notts versus Dorking. And then I believe, we have done the National League games. Then we've got to preview all the FA Trophy games as well. A lot of talk on that too. But just on this game, Dorking, of course, have a 100% record against Notts County since the two sides have met ever. One game between the two sides, and Dorking won down at their place. It feels like a massive banana skin, in my opinion. Notts haven't won in the last two games. A draw at Bromley saved them from a Langstaff last-minute equaliser. Good goal, I thought, to get back into the game last minute, but still it's points dropped there. It's a difficult place to go. I think I predicted them to draw there too. And I wasn't too surprised when that did happen, because it's always a difficult place to go. And then obviously the freak result, losing to Dagenham at home. There's a lot of pressure, I think, on them. And it's going to be a case of Notts County needing to get an early goal. And then, I think if they do get that early goal, it could be a case of 4-1, 5-1, something like that. It's gone off. But from a Dorking perspective, the longer they can keep them out, if they get an early goal, Dorking, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Notts County for sure. What's your take on this?
I put Notts County to win comfortably, 4-0. Dorking will allow Notts County to play. They're quite an open team, aren't they? They can score quite a lot of goals. They let a lot of goals in. Dorking have done well in the recent weeks, picked up a couple of lads from Crawley, sort of more experienced. George Franken, one of them coming in. He's loaned out a couple of players into the south, so he's strengthened his squad down there, Mark White. And, they picked up an impressive result against Barnet in the week. The problem you've got is, I think Notts County is just going to be too strong. The difference between Notts County and Wrexham, in my opinion, right, is Wrexham play a very industrial type of football. All joking aside, Paul Mullins is going to win penalties and they're going to get more chance to get penalties because they get the ball in the box more. Wrexham restarts, long throws, free kicks, set pieces. They're very, very effective and they will find ways to win games. I know they drew against Maidenhead the other week. An uncharacteristic mistake by Mark Howard in goal. But when you look at Notts County and they're playing against Dagenham, they're still trying to play football. They're still trying to find that probing pass when they're trying to find the goal. And they got done on the break and their fiance hit an absolute perler of a left-footed strike. I think the difference between County and Wrexham, when it comes down to it, will be Wrexham will find ways to win. And it doesn't matter how ugly or industrial it is. Whereas I think Notts County and many fans will say in this league that they're the best team they've seen because they play good football. But at the moment, with 10, 11 games to go, that's not always what the most important thing is. The most important thing is getting results on the board. I think they will against Dorking, 10,000 people there. Dorking play an open game. They'll play into County's hands. I think County will win 4-0. But I think between the two teams, I think Wrexham will do too much because they'll find ways to win games in the next few weeks.
I think it'll be 4-1 to Notts County, but it could be a case of, Dorking keeping them out, getting an early goal. It's not going to be a case like you've mentioned of, Dorking putting 11 men behind the ball. It's going to be a case of two footballing sides, and whoever's the best footballing side and scores the first goal will win, which on paper, of course, is Notts County. But like you've mentioned, Wrexham, that they're this big physical side, horrid side to play against, and where you go into that game, you always go into the game afterwards thinking, we should have got that. Wrexham are lucky. They're not going to win this league. Notts County are far better than them, a lot better footballing side. Well, that doesn't matter because Wrexham do it week on week, find ways to win, even if they were second best. We saw it against Aldershot earlier a couple of weeks ago. They find ways to win. They score goals. I think Ryan put out a tweet, if you do want to check out his page, a York City fan, on who will win the title between the two sides. And he was saying that Wrexham have beaten sides by more than 4 goals, I think 8 or 9 times, he said. I think it were 9 times this season. And that says a lot about a side. Of course, now 4 points between the two sides too. 4 points sometimes may not sound like a lot, but this season it certainly is. Of course, the two sides have to play against each other, but it's at the point now when Wrexham go into that game and think, we'll get a point against them, that's fine. We've still got that 4-point gap, where Notts now have to go somewhere like that and try get all 3 points unless Wrexham slip up in the upcoming weeks. I know they've got Halifax away as well coming up, Wrexham, which will be a big game for them too. A lot of pressure with the amount of fans there bringing 2. And that could be a bit of an awkward one as well for them. But for this game, I go for a 4-1 Notts win. I think Dorking will get the consolation goal. I think we're on to the FA Trophy games then now. We'll quickly have a look at the live chat before we do look at the FA Trophy games. We did have a few questions as well. I've forgotten. There was a Solihull fan came in and said, "Can Solihull make the playoffs?" Earlier on in the podcast. What would your thoughts be on that? I'd say no now. Andrew Dallas has left the club. I don't think even with him they've been consistent throughout the season to make the playoffs. So, yeah, I think it's too far out of reach for them now. Is it 9 points, I think, they're off the playoffs? And losing Andrew Dallas is just the icing on the cake, in my opinion now. I think Solihull, they're out of the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And loaning Andy Dallas to a playoff rival in Chesterfield speaks volumes of where Solihull probably feel they are in the league. Get him off the wage bill, potentially going to leave in the summer anyway. It's a sensible move from their point of view, but it also it's almost a bit of a defeatist move. I know one player doesn't make a team. There's several other players. Josh Kelly will step in and hopefully get more time or prove himself to be a decent signing from Maidenhead last year. Sabara, they've still got the quality, but they haven't shown a consistency throughout the season, even with a good manager like Neil Ardley in there. I think it just smacks of we're quite content now to stay in this league and go again next season. Otherwise, you wouldn't be lending your top player to another playoff rival if you didn't think that you could get in there. From what it looks like from the outside, a couple of seasons ago, was it Chesterfield loaned the big lad to Hartlepool?
Was it Denton? It might have been. It was someone like Fondop. It was, I think.
No, not Fondop. The lad that's just gone on loan to Scunthorpe.
Downey, no, it wasn't Daly. He never played.
But you look at him, and Hartlepool took him on. He scored.
Bennett. It would have been
Bennett. Yeah, he scored 5 or 6 in 7 or 8 games, and Hartlepool. He gets recalled back to Chesterfield because actually he was damaging Chesterfield's chances. So, that's an example of why would Solihull loan someone as effective as Dallas, one of their premium players, if they thought they're just content with sitting where they are. So my thoughts are that they've given up the ghost a little bit. I should imagine Solihull fans probably feel the same, but they might go again next year.
Yeah, I'd agree. Would you be Neil Ardley in or out?
I don't know enough about Solihull. I think they've shown a massive level of inconsistency this season, whereas the previous couple of seasons they've been very consistent, really, with the sort of size of the club they are. They're one of the big boys in the league. They've got a brilliant setup down there at Solihull. They've got a really good manager in Ardley. I think they're going to stick with him. I don't see any reason why. There's not many managers out there that are probably better than him at that level. I guess they've just got to cut their cloth accordingly, and they've probably found it that a little bit more difficult this season. There's some big clubs in this league. We can't take away from that. The Oldhams, Scunthorpes, no matter where they are in the league, they are big teams. Not Wrexham are off the scale. They're competing. They've competed consistently with these teams over the last few years, and sometimes it just doesn't happen for one reason or another. And I think stick with Ardley. They might lose Dallas in the summer. I'm pretty sure they can recruit again. They've got a bit of a pull there in National League, and I think they'll be all right.
Nice place in it, Birmingham as well, to attract players to right in the centre of England. And they've proven they're another side. They get players from the lower budget sides in the division, and that's what you've got to do. Josh Kelly, I would have loved to have seen him at Halifax in the summer. I was hoping we'd probably tried to sign him, but unfortunately we didn't. But yeah, he was a player I wanted. And they didn't add too much in the squad in the summer, but I don't think they needed. So of course, we could say in hindsight that's backfired now because of their position. But you're still going to lose your better players at times, no matter where you are. There's talks about Langstaff leaving at the end of the season, no matter what. That just says everything. A side like Notts County losing their best players at this level, it doesn't matter who you are. Maybe despite Wrexham, if you've got a really outstanding player and your side are not in a good position in the league, you're going to lose him at some point, and that's just unfortunate. But on the talk of managers, I didn't forget about this question because this was an interesting one. Evening, guys. Thoughts on who should be the next Dagenham and Redbridge manager? There's obviously talked about different managers. Ian Birchnell's been one. I think it's too similar, in my opinion, to Dan McMahon. I think he's that similar young manager, likes to play attractive football, but is he going to get the best out of this team? Probably not. He didn't do it for his screen, did he? He wasn't successful there. For him, would he make that step down? Darryl Curry as well from Southend, the assistant manager there. But I honestly think it's not going to, this permanent manager ain't going to happen until the end of the season. I think the interim manager at the moment is going to be there until the end of the season with 10 games remaining. And then next season, they'll be looking to recruit and hopefully get a big name in with a large status at this level. What would your take be on the next Dagenham manager? Would you agree with me where it's going to be the interim manager until the end of the season and then going out for manager in the summer, or I think they're looking at?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look at Maidstone, they've got George Elokobi in there as an interim manager because they probably feel they're going to go down. I think it's saying Daggers aren't going to. I don't think they'll get in the playoffs. So who's it? Steve Gritt? Is it Steve Gritt at the moment who's running them? I think the person that will go in there is Ben Strevens. Been out of the game for a little while, did incredibly well with Eastleigh. Still a young manager. Clearly knows the league as a player. Performed well for the likes of Eastleigh and Barnet in this league, and I think he's still young enough to be innovative and be able to go and recruit. And I've seen a couple of Wealdstone games over the last few months. He's obviously out there watching players and teams. I think he'd be a good fit for them. I could be wrong. I think he's played for them. So I would lump some money on Ben Strevens being the manager at some point.
I know he's highly rumoured to be the manager at Dagenham as well. We had a Dagenham fan on, and the video for some reason hasn't loaded still as we speak now. But he was saying about that manager as well, and he was someone that he'd wanted to see. He's also coming. Stuart Maynard taking Andrews from Torquay, who couldn't hit a barn door, and turning him into a useful option in about a month shows how good a job he's doing. We also had, he put my manager of the year. This is a question as well. It's quite interesting. My manager of the year, for sure, when we see the detail he goes into for every game and signing. Yeah, that's something as well. I think you've got to agree with that. Really nice bloke as well. I approached asking him for an interview and he said at the end of the season, and that just says a lot. Other managers just forget it as well. And he's talking on social media to supporters. Says a lot about him as well, that he truly cares about the club. What would your take be on that?
He's brilliant for us. Absolutely brilliant. He still works full time for British Telecom BT. I know him and his assistant Matty. They're at games. They were at Southend on Friday night. And I know managers do. They go and watch under 21 games. You look at it. We took Josh Umerer from Torquay, who was out of sorts, couldn't score. He's got himself a move to Hartlepool because he bagged 18 goals last year. We got Reece Brown, who'd been indifferent over a couple of spells with EFL teams and National League teams, came in, scored goals. Do you know what I think it is, right? They identify these players and they give them a platform to perform. They actually tell them to go out and play. And you can see it in Corey Andrews. I know of 2 or 3 Torquay fans, we both do. And, they couldn't speak less highly of Corey Andrews if they tried. And he's come in and listen, he's not the finished article. There's better centre forwards in the National League, but he will be a very effective National League centre forward for us. And I would not be surprised once he's fully fit and match fit that he doesn't do what Reece Brown and Josh Umerer has done. And what you said is he might end up at another full-time club. I know we've got him on an 18-month contract, but Stuart Maynard has thrown him into the team. Go and play. Torquay didn't play him. For whatever reason, it didn't work out down there. He's a London boy. I know Stuart had been on his case for a few months. Once he left all the shot, we tried to get him then, and he got lured to Torquay for full-time football, I guess. Maybe more money. But, he's come. Stuart Maynard makes players want to play for the football club. He gives them a platform to perform.
He reminds me of a Pete Wild at Halifax. He reminds me of that sort of manager, gets the best out of players that haven't made it at other clubs, makes them into really good professionals to go on and do it and go on and do even better at other clubs. And that's something that I'm sure Wealdstone are trying to do. Wealdstone are never going to be a club that, we have a really good player, we're going to have him forever. Or even if you got to Football League with this team now, let's say you went on a good run, you got into the playoffs, did a Grimsby and got promoted this season, you'd still probably lose the better players in that squad because of the size of the club compared to other sides. But what Wealdstone do well is they'd find a load of players from the Football League that, might not have done well at the previous clubs, might not be the complete footballer yet. They sign them, they get them, make them into good footballers. And that's how Wealdstone work. And that's something that I think you have to admire with what Stuart Maynard and his team do behind the scenes too. That's all I'd say on that. But
just quickly, you've got to put a sense of perspective on it. Stuart Maynard is dealing with professional footballers. Most of those lads, save for 1 or 2 of them, he likes a Dyer. Charles is a university student. Alex Dyer's in property. Jack Cook works for Nike. But the majority of them are footballers. So they are professional. They are fit. They are athletic. What Stuart and Matty do so well is what they're able to to convey to the team and get in that team in that short amount of contact time they have. You know, they train traditionally Tuesdays and Thursday nights at a local secondary school on 3G. You know, they're not getting 3 or 4 hours a day. They're getting 3 or 4 hours a week. So I think that's what is so good about what they're doing. That, you know, they can analyse opponents and they can get across to this squad how they want them to play and how they're going to try and win a game in that short amount of time they have. And I think that's testament to them, but it's also testament to the lads who, yes, they are part-time, but they are professional, they are fit, they keep themselves fit. We've got a good strength and conditioning coach in a lady called Rachel Hill, who's absolutely vital to the team. But yeah, I think I'm not suggesting Stewie's dealing with firemen and accountants and milkmen, but it's that contact time, and he's doing so well as that in that part-time operation.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what you need, especially when you are part-time, and you know you're a small fish, I think, in a big pond, which Wealdstone are still, and they're certainly overachieving this season. And I think with the players that they've got, Stuart Maynard has done exceptionally well, and I'm sure next season they can push on as well, even if it doesn't fall into place this season and they get into the playoffs. David Wood came in, another Wrexham fan from abroad. Well, he's a Settle fan as well. Settle fan here. Enamored by Wrexham's story. Love your in-depth National League analysis. So educational, showcasing the qualities of all the teams. Great job and welcome to the stream. Don't know, MLS starts soon, doesn't it? I think it's always when...
It's just started, yeah.
So just started. I know Settle are one of the stronger teams, aren't they, in the MLS? Yeah. Always seem to do well. Mr. Luke's come in and said, we have some massive games to get some points on the board. Torquay home, Aldershot away, Dorking home, Yeovil home, Scunthorpe home. I'm praying we do. Yeah, there certainly is a lot of games there. The only negative, and I'm sorry to have this on a negative note, is if you do drop points to those sides, you're gifting sides around you points on the board, which puts you in a more difficult situation too. But then again, it sort of shows, are you good enough to stay up? If you win these games, then you can't say, oh, we were unfortunate, because the game's against winnable sides, and you've done, so, in my opinion, done so well against the stronger sides to pick the odd result up here and there. So it's just about getting points on the board against these sides now. And as a Gateshead fan, hopefully you are fine. Joe came in, just been told by our Ukraine fans that Lopata means shovel in Ukrainian and Polish. Like he says, we might need him to clear the snow on Saturday. Yeah, interesting stat there. Hopefully Lopata does sign for us. He's class. Yeah, he certainly is. Will, who's a Huddersfield fan, come and say boring tables. That should be at the darts, Will. Not on a National League podcast. He's a Huddersfield fan as well, who are struggling in the Championship. Let's laugh at them. Hopefully these games go ahead. Otherwise, oops, yeah. I don't know. It wasn't too bad in Gateshead on Tuesday evening, but I'm sure as outside here now, it's covered. I'm sure it's probably worse up north with it being further up north. We watching your Dockstar report on Scunthorpe. Will you be doing a similar programming? I find myself rooting for them because of their story and the way you reported it on it. Yeah, cheers for that, Aaron. At the time I just did it because I felt they weren't getting enough coverage, and fortunately it's gone really well at the moment. 100% Corey Andrews will score for Wealdstone. Main had a brilliant coach that gets the best out of players. Did the same with Unwa and doing likewise for Andrews. Andrews to score plus celebrate at playing more. Yeah, fair play to you. Fair play. Especially with him being a Torquay fan. Evening, Luke. He's a Wrexham fan. Does Race Course Ramble. Good podcast as well on them. Evening, Luke. Really impressed with Wrexham's performances versus Dagenham. Make sure you plug my Racecourse Ramble podcast, mate. Keep up the good work. Yeah, I will do. If I remember after the podcast, I'll leave a link in the description. Then we've got, you didn't play that well against Gates and made it look easy for us. Sorry, pal, mate. No worries at all. How many points do you think 7th place this season? 72. That's an interesting one. I'm going to ask you this, Paul. I think last couple of seasons, it was like 74 last year, because I was working out, seeing if Halifax could get into the playoffs. At 74 last year. Year before, it was 72. Year before that, I think it was in the 60s. Based off this season, how many points would you estimate it's going to be?
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. I've not really thought about that, to be honest. I mean, he's currently at 57, isn't it, with about 10 games to go. So, I mean, it could be as many as 87, but I think it's going to be in and around that 70. Everyone seems to be beating everybody else, don't they? So it might not be quite as many as we think. Wrexham and Notts are going to sort of hit that 100-point mark at the top end, but yeah, it's going to be in and around the low 70s, I should imagine. Just depends how the level of consistency these teams, almost from sort of bagging them up to the 11th place, how well they do in those next 10 games, really, to sort of put a bit of pressure on the likes of Eastleigh and Boreham Wood at that bottom end.
Have a guess then. I'll go 74 points.
I'll say 73.
Oh, we'll have at the end of the season, we'll have a look, and I'll give a bonus 3 points, whoever's closest. So James, I think it is 20 minutes behind, but if Wrexham, Fulton don't go up, I'm hoping Chester come up, so we could have cross-border derby again. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one to report on, as well as a neutral. Only thing is I won't be able to get a ticket because of Wrexham at the moment. Up the Woking, why do Maynard always seem to be such a rough nut to crack, though? Yeah, they certainly are. It's never a team that I always think, oh, that's an easy 3 points at all. Keza, who is an Oldham supporter, has come in. Is in the live chat now, saying the Maidenhead fan's still here. Yeah, he's still here. Welcome still. Jim follows the Shaman all around the country. Jim, I know you'll have something to say on how many miles you've done this season. Come on, Shaman, on Saturday. Aldershot, I'll be returning. I'm going for a 2-1 Shaman win. Yeah, we are getting onto those games too. He's also said Wrexham will win the league. Just having a look now. I'll try skip a few because we do need to get onto the predictions. Yeah, that is... Yeah, we'll leave it for now. We'll come back at the end before we do wrap things up. And then, yeah, we'll be fine. So, yeah, let's get on to the FA Trophy games. Yeah, let's quickly have a quick look then. So if I can get him up here next then. So this is an interesting one. It's only showing 2 at the moment for some reason. If I go by round, it'll show it. Yeah. In my opinion, game of the round would either be Halifax, Aldershot Halifax, or York Altrincham. Which game would you like to look at first?
Let's go Shots Halifax. It's your team, isn't it? How do you see them, Luke?
Well, I look at Aldershot at the moment. Out of form, haven't won in 5. Halifax have had 3 away wins all season. That was against Solihull, Scunthorpe and Oldham. I think this game will come down to who wants it more. Aldershot have never been to Wembley. Their season sort of fizzled out. Halifax, it's the same. Of course, they went to Wembley in 2016. But I'm sure if you're the players and you're the management, Millington could be the difference between him having a job next season and him not. At the moment, Millington is getting a lot of criticism from fans. Some of it, I think, is unnecessary, in my opinion. Some of it, I do slightly agree with. But if he can win this trophy, he'll get his name and his status will improve, and that's something that you'd need going into next season. The fans won't be able to complain the same. I'd take a mid-table finish in an FA Trophy final. But the thing is, it'll come down to who wants it more on the day. In my opinion, Aldershot, they'll be rooting to get to Wembley. They must be one of the bigger clubs out there that have never got to Wembley before. I think them being at home. I know he's not in the stream tonight, I don't think, but Kirby's a big Aldershot fan, and ever since the draw, he's been talking about this game and been so nervous. I'm starting to get nervous now because, it's not really about winning the trophy for me, but having that occasion to go to Wembley again with Halifax, having a semi-final potentially where you've got a bigger crowd than what you'd usually have. I am starting to get a little bit more nervous, but in all honesty, Aldershot deserve to be in the quarters more than Halifax do. Halifax have had 2 games. They got through against Harrow Borough, 2 leagues below, on penalties. Then they beat Maidenhead away on penalties. And then this game, you look at Aldershot, they of course beat Dorking in the last round to get here. So if you look at the game, I think the only way Halifax is going to win is if they can get this game to go to penalties. And I won't be surprised in that, but I just can't see us winning in normal time, unfortunately. But what would your take be on this?
I've gone with an Aldershot win. I think you're quite right. Neither team are going to hit the playoffs or going to get relegated. So they're probably all in for this game. And I think all 4 can be, when it comes to quarterfinals, semi-finals, who wants it more? And I just think Aldershot at home, they've got quite a partisan crowd. I don't know how many Halifax will take as a support.
150, something like that. Because I don't know how we don't seem to be. We're not building this game up like Aldershot fans are, because probably we've been to Wembley. I don't know, 150, something like that.
So I've gone with an Aldershot win, 2-1. It won't be a high scoring. I think it will be tight. Having seen Halifax play the other week, if they play like they did against Wealdstone and put a lot of pressure under Aldershot, who knows? So, but I think Aldershot have that advantage just because they're at home, and I think that just sways it in their favour slightly. So yeah, shots 2, Halifax 1.
Sort of feel like it'll go to penalties and our luck will run out, because penalties, it's all about luck. And I can't see us winning it 3 times in a row. I hope I'm wrong, but there's an outside. I'm going to ask you this later on, but if there's a side that I think are going to win this trophy, of course, Barnet will probably be the favourites, because no side, they're the only side in the top 12 that are in this competition. Every other side's below 12 this season. That's Altrincham in 13th. So favourites will definitely be Barnet, but there's a side I can see wanting it the most, never been to Wembley before. I can see it being Aldershot, and I think they're going to pull through in this game, unfortunately. We always seem to bottle it when it really does matter, and I think this is an example of that. I'm going to go another penalty shootout, but I'm going to go for an Aldershot win, a 1-1 draw, and I think it'll go to penalties. Next game then, this is an interesting game. Gateshead, do you see Gateshead, like the last 2 clubs, Halifax and Aldershot, they haven't particularly got anything to play for. I don't want this to be famous last words, but I don't think either side are going to go down this season or have any issues of that. Where this side, Gateshead, they've got a fierce relegation battle to concentrate on, and I don't know what they'd rather, go to Wembley or stay up. But that could be a question for some Gateshead fans. But Farnsley coming away, it's a massive banana skin if this game, of course, is on. Farnsley's local to me. It's about 20 minutes down the road. I've been there. To think them having an opportunity to get into Wembley is mad. And it has that FA Cup story, that fairy tale where you can see Farnsley going on to get to Wembley. But I think, in my opinion, it'll be a comfortable Gateshead win. I think a 2-0 win, nothing major, but I think they'll be able to pull through in this game. How do you see this game going? And do you think it could be a distraction for Gateshead?
No, I mean, if the Gateshead were coming up against the likes of maybe Barnet or York or Halifax, a team like that, then they may view it slightly differently. But Farsley are obviously going to go to Gateshead. They'll probably take a lot of support. Unfortunately, I don't know a huge amount about Farsley and how they're doing, but I just can't. It's going to be their cup final, right? Because they probably don't think they're going to go much further. But genuinely, I can't see anyone winning apart from Gateshead. 2-0 as well, I've said. I know Gateshead fans have sort of bemoaned the fact that they're probably not playing quite so well, but they've got to see this as a massive opportunity. The lowest ranked team in the competition at home, it stacks in Gateshead's favour. But you're right, Farsley could put in a massive shift, a huge performance, and get themselves in the semi-final. But I just can't see it. I can't see it.
Yeah, I think. I'd agree. I think it'll be a case of if Gateshead get that goal, then it'll, they'll go on to win it. The only way I could see Farsley getting anything is it being, bit going on a while without a goal. Maybe Farsley nick a goal or something. But if Gateshead score first, in my opinion, it's game over. Next game we'll have a look at then. Maidstone v Barnet. I've gone for quite a controversial prediction. I went for a Maidstone win. I do have an opportunity to justify that. But firstly, Paul, what would your take be on this?
I've gone with a Barnet win. Again, I think any team, I don't care who they are out of those 8, any team needs to look at this and this is a massive opportunity for a win at Wembley. They're all very much of a muchness. Yeah, Barnet are the favourites because of their league position. I saw Maidstone play on Tuesday night. All I can say was that they were pretty dreadful. They looked cooked. They looked like they knew they were going to get relegated. Yeah. The only thing is Ella Kobe's in there, got a lot of experience. Are they chucking everything into trying to get to Wembley? They're not going to keep their status in the National League. Are we going to do everything we can to try and win this and put all their eggs in one basket? I don't know whether Regan Booty is back for them. He's going to be a huge addition if he is. Barnet aren't on a great run of form. They're playing away from home. They lost to Dorking in the week. Dean, I think the problem with Barnet is they've got a very good team. Their squad's not great, and it's starting to catch up with them a little bit. And Dean Brennan sort of alludes to that in some of his press conferences after games and his interviews after games. So I can't see Barnet losing, purely because I think they just got too much quality and haven't seen Maidstone. Maidstone don't have any quality. So I've gone for a Barnet 3-1 win. You know, Harry Smith scored again the other night. He's been a great loan signing. I don't know whether he's cup. He won't be cup tied because he's come from Orient. So I think Barnet will just have too much.
Oh, you got to believe with the magic of the cup. No, I'm going to go for a Maidstone win, and it's a bit of a shock, but this is just how they've got there. Worthing they beat in the early stages. Worthing, of course, getting through that game, you'd expect it, but Worthing doing well in their division. Then you go to Notts County away from home, take them to penalties and win on penalties there. 2-2 draw, that is. Then you go to Eastleigh. Of course, Eastleigh have only had 3 defeats at home all season, and they beat them 4-0. Sorry, no sides defeated Eastleigh at the Silver Lake this season by more than 3 goals, I think. So that says a lot. Of course, it's in the FA Trophy, and now they've got Barnet at home. Maidstone will have a big crowd behind them. They have nothing to play for at all because they're going down. Maidstone fans, I think, have realised that. But what they do have is this opportunity to get to Wembley. And we've talked about this. We talk about if they do win this competition or even get to Wembley or even win this match, you know, you're going to get a bit of money, and that's something you've got to talk about. Sides like Maidstone, their owner will be rubbing his hands together thinking, if we win this match, I'm going to be in a lot of pocket here. I think it's quite a lot of money, I know, that you'd get from winning this game. And Barnet, they need to focus on the league. And I'm not saying for 1 minute, you can think of this game, no, we're not going to bother turning up. We're going to put the kids out. I don't mean that. They'll put the strongest team out. But a lot of Barnet players might be thinking, I don't want to get injured. We're in the playoffs. You know, we could fall out of it. Do you run that risk of, if you do get through this game, players are going to be tired. Then you've got another 2 games to think about too. Will we end up falling out of the playoffs? That's the question maybe you would ask. And I think it'll come down to which side wants it more. And I think it'll be the same with every single game on this. Whoever wants it more on the day will go through. I'm going to go for a Maidstone win. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Maidstone win. I think being at home, big crowd behind them, I think, they're going to want it more. And I think they're going to be ready for this game. And I think they are going to pull through, which may be a bit of a shock to a lot of people. Next game then, which one would you like to go to? No, it's not a choice of that one. The last game now, York versus Altrincham. This is a massive game for Altrincham. I think I don't know. I think both sides will be up for this, but I know Altrincham are taking a lot to this game. I think they've sold out. Is it the back of the stand, and then they've got the stand behind the goal, and then they've got a bit down the side as well, which is huge numbers for Altrincham, which just shows how they're taking this serious. Maybe for them, the playoffs is definitely a step too far. So maybe it's the only thing they've got to focus on, but maybe York, it's the same. York, they have been to Wembley I think they have in the FA Trophy the season they went down. Might be wrong on that. But they'll be wanting to make a return. I think this will be another draw, to be honest. And I think I'm going to go for York to win on penalties, in my opinion. I'll probably go for... I don't think there'll be any goals. I think it'll be a 0-0. I think it'll go to penalties and York are going to win. How do you see this game going?
1-1 with Altrincham winning on penalties.
Oh, so a bit of a different prediction.
Yeah, and I would go for Altrincham to win it.
The competition?
Yeah. I don't think they've not been a great run of form, but they're a good side. You know, they're a good footballing team. I've just got a hunch that they will do. You know, they're previous winners of this back in the day, in the 80s. They want to return. You know, they've got back into the National League over the last couple of years. They're certainly a team on the up. I know they've recently not done too brilliantly the last few games, but yeah, I just think they'll do too much for York. York have got maybe a relegation battle on their minds. It's going to be a tight one. I think you're right. Out of the 4 games, that's going to be the draw potentially. I see Altrincham winning on penalties, and if I was a betting man, I'll be putting money on them to win it.
I think like I said, I think it'll be Aldershot. I think they're the side that are, like you mentioned, you justified that extremely well, but I think they haven't won this competition. They've never been to Wembley. I think Aldershot are going to want it. Halifax, if they get through that, they've got a semi-final. At home, I think they're going to get through this game. I'd be backing Aldershot in my opinion. But yeah, Altrincham could be an shout spot. But yeah, I'm going to go for Altrincham to win the competition. I think a lot of it's a case of, is it going to be a distraction maybe for the likes of Barnet, Gateshead this season? I don't know. It's a difficult one, but the likes of Altrincham, York, Halifax, Aldershot, even Farsley, even another side. I think they're mid-table in league below. It probably is their only shot of silverware this season, or getting promoted this season. I think we've more or less wrapped it up then. I think we've more or less done all the games. I do thank everyone for tuning in. We'll quickly have a look at the live chat before we do give this to a close. Where are we now? Just here. The run-up will probably miss out because it will be hurtful for them, and then it's anybody's. I hope Wrexham and not score up. Let's get rid of them. Then the Shaman will win it next season. Yeah, hopefully, Jim. Hopefully, positive thinking on that one. But yeah, I do understand on that. I think it's good that we've got sides like Notts and Wrexham. I don't know what your thoughts on that in the league. I think it raises the profile of the league. But with them gone, there's an opportunity for another side to win it. We saw a couple of seasons ago, Sutton, Barrow, sides like that. I don't think that'd be happening now. Maybe a couple of years, Woking would win the competition, but with how competitive it is now, sides like your Wheelstones who are wanting to progress, I don't think have that opportunity with the bigger sides in the division. What's your take on that?
Listen, it's always sad to see some of these bigger teams go because we like him. I was speaking with someone at work today who, funny enough, has just started to go and watch Crawley. It's their local team. And he was saying how impressed he was at the lower level of League Two, how good the football was, even though they're struggling. I said, look, you need to stick around. If they get relegated, stick around and watch National League football. When I showed him who was in the league, he couldn't believe it. The likes of Wrexham, Notts County, Southend, Scunthorpe, Oldham. He was amazed, And I think even if we lose Wrexham and Notts County, we're going to get Rochdale and Crawley, potentially Hartlepool. Not quite on the same scale, but they're big football clubs, So it's a great league to watch. It's a great league to be involved in. It's a hard league to get out of. I'd be sad to see Wrexham go. I think we all will. The Hollywood factor adds a little bit of drama to it. It's added massive amount of exposure to the league. I think I'll be sad to see Notts County go because it's in an impressive setup and stadium. You don't get to go to those games every week, and those grounds rather. But listen, whoever comes into this league makes it competitive, and it's a bastard league. You can't get out of it easily. So whoever comes in from either the south and north or down from the EFL, they'll add competition, and next year will be just as competitive because these big clubs want to get out.
Yeah, certainly. Next season it'll be a side like Oldham. They'll be strong. I think next season it'll be sides like that. Chesterfield, if they don't go up, will be strong again. If even Notts or Wrexham, but the same story, and then you just add another two clubs to it. And it's about that sort of turn that you have every single season. That cycle that you have of sides coming down, struggling first season, then they regain and get a bit of backing, and then you've got, you're signing out players again. Keza came and said, that's what I'm trying to say. No team in this league are that good apart from Wrexham and Notts. So I think a hard to break down, gritty team will win the playoffs. I don't see that in Chesterfield. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. That's the only thing. They're a bit too pretty for my liking, maybe in the playoffs. Jim said, me neither, Barnet or Woking. And then Mr. Luke said, hardly any snow up here. We actually have a chance, but it will be a -3 degrees on Friday night. Seriously, you should see outside, Luke, at the amount of snow in Yorkshire. Callum said Barnet were decent when we played them, to be fair. Joe came in and said, glad to say I will be commenting on Aldershot versus Halifax this weekend. I'll be tuning into that because I won't be making the journey down. Jim said, it says on FanHub I've done over 5,500, but I'm not sure if it's accurate. It's still a good effort. One game missed Guiseley away in the FA Trophy. That is some going, that. I know Southend away, another one as well. Now, I've been talking to you how you do it, Jim, and it's quite amazing and phenomenal how you managed to get to that many games this season. Have we got any others? I think we edged this in the game. Faza will go up for a bit. We managed to beat another National League North side. I would rather stay in the league than the trophy. Quality will show from us. Yeah, that's an interesting one. He'd rather stay in the division. The Maidstone fan said Maidstone 2, Barnet 1. He's agreed with me. Maidstone seem to care about the trophy substantially more than the league, which showed against Notts County / Eastleigh. Barnet could also be distracted by the playoffs. 21st in the National League North, yeah. So they have got a slight relegation battle on their hands. And then we had Mullin is absolutely committed to win the league. It's what you need. And then we've had Aaron, who said, I also continue to appreciate this podcast and find myself side rooting for Halifax and Wealdstone up the town, and we'll miss the league next season and the friends we've made along the way. Yeah, this is a reason that I don't want sides like that to go up. But thanks for your support. Hopefully we can start getting a bit more support Halifax from supporters like yourselves. And I think the rest of it, to be honest, is just waffle from supporters. And we have been on for quite a while, a lot longer than usual. So I do apologise for that, Paul. But thank you to everyone that's tuned in tonight. It's been good numbers once again throughout the podcast. Paul, thanks for joining me.
No problem. Thank you for having me, Luke. As always, I enjoy it. And we'll see how these results pan out come 4:45 on the Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, these are the scores at the moment. Hopefully I will be in the lead because I haven't been in the lead yet. Did quite well last weekend, so hopefully I can build on that. Dorking Drummer, the last one, never write off the mighty Dorking Wanderers. Yeah, nice thing to end on that from the Dorking Drummer. Good drummer as well from what I've seen online too, if you are the actual drummer. But thank you to everyone that's tuned in. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we will see you probably on Monday evening. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.